Hello, Mike Rasmussen, CPA Straight Talk for Small Business on August 31st. And tomorrow is a big day because you get to decide on whether you're going to elect or your employer is going to elect to make available to you as an employee, or you need to know your options as an employer for the executive memorandum issued by President Trump on August 8th. So, as just a real briefer, basically back on August 8th, there were three executive memorandums and one executive order, but one of the memorandums was a payroll tax incentive to defer the employees' payroll tax obligations from September 1 to December 31st. And then what would happen is that from January 1 of 2021 to the end of May 31, 2021 next year, those amounts that were deferred would then be paid back ratably, or at least by May 31st, unless alternative arrangements were made by the employee with the employer. So here we go. I'm going to go to the, let me just go to the irs.gov, which is where I always go. And this is, remember, just the secure site. That's how you've got the lock. But here's the guidance issued late on Friday afternoon. Now, on August 28th. So here it is, Department of Treasury issued guidance, and I'll get to that, implementing the presidential memorandum August 8th, which is what we just talked about. This notice right here, which is 2020-65. Now, in ranking of authority, this one is, when it comes out from the IRS, this is specifically related to anything that has to do with the Internal Revenue Code, not an SBA program, but Internal Revenue Code, which is how we need to follow the employment tax laws. And that's where it has to come from Secretary Treasury Mnuchin or the IRS. So that's the notices that they issued. And it's guidance, okay? Makes relief available for employers and generally applies to wages paid starting September 1. We just talked about that. And so I will get into exactly what that means. So when you go to this website, you are able to click on the guidance. Here is what it looks like in web form. And then I'm going to jump over here to, I've got it detailed for you. So here's what it looks like. It looks pretty boring, obviously, but issued a presidential memorandum to defer the withholding, deposit, and payment of certain payroll tax obligations. And again, those were the employee's share of Social Security in simple terms, okay? Next, the deposit obligation for employee Social Security tax does not arise until the tax is withheld, or when there's been a payment beginning tomorrow, which is September 1st. That's why today is so critical. So there's a decision that needs to be made. The postponing accordingly, by postponing the time for withholding the employee Social Security tax, the deposit obligations is delayed by operation of regulations. So all that happened is that this notice deferred the withholding and the timing of wages issued September 1 to December 31st of 2020. But then those must be repaid and withheld. So whatever was deferred will be withheld beginning January 1 of 2021. Let's keep going. Okay. So then we go down to, so here it is, the postponed, the deferred withholdings until the period beginning on January, ending April 30, 2021. Okay. For purposes of this notice, applicable wages means wages defined in section, but that's basically if you have under a threshold amount of $4,000 biweekly, okay? And then you go down to the affected taxpayer, which would be employer, must withhold and pay the total applicable taxes that the affected taxpayer deferred ratably from wages and compensation. So there's obviously issues of what if the employer is not around January 1 to April 30? What if the employee's not around? How are you going to make, how would you withhold ratably? So the assumption is that these are going to be ratably withheld. And here it is, pay between January 1 and April 30, or interest and penalties and additions to tax will begin to accrue on May 31st with respect to any unpaid applicable taxes. So when I said the end of May, it's April 30. So pay between January 1 and April 30, 2021. And then noticing right here, if necessary, the affected taxpayer may make arrangements to otherwise collect the total applicable taxes from the employee. So I have heard employers are writing up in a little agreement that basically says to employees and having them sign in their next paycheck beginning tomorrow, whenever that happens, if an employee elects to defer and any paid wages from September 1 of 2020 to December 31st, if an employee elects, that means if an employee leaves and any amounts not ratably withheld from the deferment in 2021 for those amounts, the employee must make arrangements to repay. And I even heard employers are requesting that the employee would sign a note upon leaving the company. So employee scenario has wages in between September 1, 2020 and December 31, starting tomorrow. And let's just say those total Social Security wage amounts for that period is $5,000. That means from January 1 to April 30 of 2021, any paychecks from that same employer would then be ratably withheld from an employee's paycheck, and then the employer has the obligation as normal because they were now technically paid, to remit those to the government. So the scenarios are, what happens if an employee leaves in that 4-month window in 2021? What if the employer goes out of business? Is the employee responsible? I think there's a lot more scenarios that are going to come out. Now, you've heard all over the news that it's possible that if President Trump gets elected, his goal, or at least one of his platform points, has been talked about to eliminate repayment of any deferred payroll taxes. So as an employee, if it is in your lap, you just need to understand what happens. You basically, if you're going to have the Social Security withheld on any wages now, you're going to be responsible to pay those in next year, 2021, the first 4 months. Okay. If you're an employer, you're not forced to withhold, but more than likely employees are all giving notice to all of the employees of how this specific executive memorandum will be administered to their company. Okay. And it also has to do with how is their payroll company. So you've got, some of the big payroll companies like ADP and Paychex already have systems in place of how to start deferring that small piece of, which is the employee's share, 6.2% of wages issued under $4,000 biweekly between September 1 and December 31, 2020. Okay? That's how technically. So if you're an employer, you've got to come up with how are you going to administer and execute. And then also, if you do, what is your plan on deferring the monies that were deferred by employees from January 1 to April 30, 2021? Okay? How are you going to collect? And so it's got to be pretty clear in someone's paycheck of exactly how this is going to be administered to your company through as wages are paid. So I've heard that this memorandum was actually one of the things they point to. Here is the memorandum that occurred August 8th from the president, and I'm going to jump right down to forgiveness. Right here, tax forgiveness. Secretary of Treasury shall explore avenues, including legislation, to eliminate the obligation to pay the taxes deferred pursuant to the implementation of this memorandum. It's explore avenues, and I can tell you as of August 31st, here at 1 o'clock Central Time, that there has been no discussion about the results of this explanation by the Secretary of Treasury. So Friday night was when this tax notice came out by the Treasury. Here, there is, again, addressing Section 4 of the Executive Memorandum on this. There has been no discussion or guidance or results, if you will, of exploring avenues of eliminating the obligation. Although articles and media and all of that focus on, well, this is President Trump's intent. Remember, pretty conservative here on what I'm explaining is that there was a notice, and then this was the executive memoranda that told the Treasury, and as of right now, there is no at least guidance out on the Treasury website that Secretary of Treasury Mnuchin's website, that anything has been addressed. Okay? So then I want to let's go back to, so we have go back to the notice, and let me just go a little bit farther down here. And as you can see, it's real short. There really wasn't much guidance. So why I wanted to show you that was because there's not much guidance. The guidance that we're giving, or that is really happening with, if you're an employer and you're watching this, and you have got tomorrow, make sure your payroll company is set to withhold if you're going to offer the program. But the bigger trigger is for wages is on the repayment. I don't think employers are relying on whether a president's going to be renominated or not, or have a second term on November 3rd. The conservative stance right now is that if the employer is allowing an employee to withhold, the employee is there's going to be guidance on how that's going to work and be executed with through the employer's payroll system and as an employee of the company. So as an employee, you're going to there's no mandatory withholding out of this administrative procedural, this notice 2020-65 from the Treasury. Okay? So if you're an employee watching this, make sure you get a hold of your company and right away, HR, human resource, and find out what is our guidance on the payroll tax deferment, which is really the Social Security piece of your 6.2% of wages, up to $4,000 every 2 weeks, biweekly. What is your guidance, your employer's guidance on this notice, and as it relates to the executive memorandum that President Trump signed on August 8th. Okay. So then the final, it's like, I wanted to show you something else. So if you wanted to know, and again, I'm not affiliated with any, I don't pick a party or whatever, when I see an article, I kind of wanted to know a little bit about who was Steven Mnuchin. And I found this little article here it is New York Times, really doesn't matter, but it was written yesterday, and I thought it had a great for you if you want to know what his background is. So I have a lot of owners saying who are some of our leaders that we are following. Just where did they come from? What is their background? So in this on the New York Times yesterday, you can see here's a little bit about. Although the title says, tried to save the economy, not even his family is happy. I thought that this was a very simple read, a little bit about his bio. Now, again, you can also go to, Wikipedia, and you can go to the U.S. Treasury site to go through. But this is the gentleman that was really responsible for a lot of the U.S. Treasury and the stimulus bills. And it's for the White House. He has literally been on the task force with a lot of the stimulus. So if you want to know a little bit of his background, there you go. Okay. So let's see. So then, if you follow us on Facebook, if you wouldn't mind, like the page. That helps. You can see we just came up with a new logo over the weekend, and we're continually changing the site to make it more user-friendly and value add to you, so it can easily be high-tech certified public accountant. That's me. There you go. Then if you could go to, we take the recordings and slice them up a little bit. We'll be refreshing the YouTube here. If you could subscribe here in the upper corner. And then as always, you could go to my homepage at HiTechCPA, and we'll finish going through all the logos, but we update it as quick as we can. You can go in here, you can jump in, take a tour. There are little videos, a little in general, but then you can get in touch with me. Shoot me an email and let me know what's on your mind, because I specifically take these if they're not like today. So what I do with these, let's go back. So I take the questions and I will go research them, and then I will take the content live on Facebook Monday through Thursdays, and then I will shorten those up and post them on YouTube for later reference. And so I take emails that people, that my clients and subscribers and who are watching the program, and I take those and digest them, and if they're super sensitive like today, this is why I wanted to come out. Today was time sensitive because of the guidance for the payroll, because both employers, the executive memorandum, the employers and employees need to make it a decision today. And I hope this gets you well informed and talking with your employer on what is their procedure, their execution on this executive member regarding payroll taxes, and what happens, and hopefully you're deciphering through all the noise out there and going, okay, if I'm an employee and my employer offers, and I elect to have my Social Security 6.2% on my wages paid between September 1 and December 31, 2020, I am still employed by that employer from January 1 to April 30, 2021. Any amounts that were deferred and not withheld out of my paycheck as an employee, I now have to ratably allow my employer to withhold unless I make further arrangements. That's what the notice said and the guidance from Secretary of Treasury. So you need to make a decision on how you're going to proceed as an employee. So what do? If you're an employer, create, if you haven't already, how your payroll company handles it and how your employees are going to handle the execution of the executive memorandum of payroll tax that President Trump signed in on August 8th, and the guidance we got from the Treasury, Notice 2020 65 on Friday night, late in the day. If you're an employee, what you need to do is look at what you're employing, look at the execution plan and the guidance of exactly how that's going to happen with your employer, and make a decision. Weigh what's going to go on. You know exactly how it impacts you. Make a decision. And when I have topics like this are super date sensitive, I will then bring those to you immediately so you can watch this and go make a decision before, if not today by end of day, you've got to make a decision starting tomorrow on any payroll that is withheld by the employer, any that was executed, or and from the employee standpoint, make sure you get those right elections in there. Well, Mike Rasmussen, CPA, Straight Talk for Small Business, August 31st. Go make a decision. Go find out. Call your employer. Call HR. Figure out what you are going to do. So have a great day, and I will see you tomorrow.